Yeah.
Recording is on.
Welcome to DXgov governance discussion for October 12th, kind of 1500 UTC. Today's a special edition. We'll be focusing almost entirely on governance 2.0, but before we get there, we just want to do our familiar proposal roundup because there actually are tons of things kind of going on right now with DXgov governance. So starting first with mainnet, there are three different farming proposals. And so I think, John, the swapper has been sent to the farming relayer that just passed, I think, yesterday. And these are three separate multi-call proposals to get us there. And then there is, and then there's a treasury diversification proposal and then a transfer 150 ETH to XI for buyback. So as the buyback kind of ramped up, I think there's about 90 or 100 WETH in DXDAO. So this is to replenish that. And then, of course, now, which is almost like a weekly occurrence, we have a update swapper.eth proposal for 6.1. So a lot of activity on mainnet. And now one of my most exciting new DX vote.
Using version 1.01. Yeah. Also now, this is a new version.
Yeah. Because it's nice because on dxvote.eth too. And then XDAI, we have a bunch of proposals, just to kind of really three big buckets. One is a bunch of buyback proposals. I think there's 5 right here. So that is the funding and multi-call. Second is, which is just about to pass in an hour here. Just about an hour and 10 minutes. This is related to the buyback, but is actually a withdrawal request from the relayer. So I think in the GP relayer and XDAI, there's 3,300 or something, maybe a little bit more than that now. And this is to bring it from the relayer to the treasury. We had previously done this in June, but 250 DXD there. But this is just to kind of get it back into XDXDAO there. And it's actually 2 separate proposals that we have to do for that. And then there are tons of swapper farming campaigns. So I think there's 8, maybe, I think on XDAI around that. So these were submitted last week and they are scheduled to pass tomorrow around 1400 UTC, which is pretty important because they launch campaigns that launch at 1500 UTC tomorrow. So we need to make sure that we execute all of these proposals in the hour before the epoch starts tomorrow. So I think Keaton and I can make sure that happens there. And then there was a retrospective bonus payout for Caden. And then, the rest I think are different buyback orders. We have, we have a couple more here, sorry. And then Tammy contract period payout, and then the legal budget here. And then Arbitrum is a similar story. Because on Arbitrum, there's a bunch of swapper farming proposals. And actually, the only thing I want to say is there needs to be, I think, one more proposal on Arbitrum.
Yeah, we need to send swapper to the OXCLON wallet. Need a manual deployment of the multi-rewards for RBs against E.
Okay.
So we'll be doing that.
That proposal is live, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah.
That's the one right there.
Yeah, it's remake. Yeah, there it is.
So we'll pass that through today, and then me and Frederick have prepared the script, and we'll get the campaign up probably tonight.
Cool. And it's just kind of a testament to governance or a testament to how much work the swapper stuff is. But how many live proposals are there right now to launch campaigns? 25 or something, right? We've got 3 on mainnet, I think 8 on XDAI. And then, however many kind of we did on Arbitrum here. So there's a lot of different activity there. Any questions on proposals out? Anything on the different bases we need to coordinate? There's a couple different things, as I said before then, but any thoughts from those at home?
I think notable to check out on the forum before it becomes a proposal. We have a new contributor being introduced to DXvote, Louis, and his contributor proposal is up in the forum. So everybody check it out. It'll probably go up next week.
It's up now.
Yeah, in the forum.
In the
the
forum,
forum,
I'm
yeah.
sorry, in the forum,
Yeah.
and then it'll probably go
Yeah.
up in the next week or so,
It's what's he? Because it's I see Luchux.
Luchux.
Okay, so what should I call him? It's like if I feel like this is Federico, I just like didn't say any name for a while because I was like, do you want to go with Lucy or Federico?
He goes by Luli.
Luli, Luchux, Luciano.
I wish I could do it like
Luli.
Augusto does.
Luli.
Cool. All right. And then now just kind of switching, I think, to the main event here. Is anyone? Okay, so we're going to start. So this is, we chatted a little bit, lunch, Ross, Dave, Augusto, and I, about like kind of how we should be chatting about governance 2.0. How can we kind of kick off a discussion amongst people to get it here? I think we wanted to start with like where we are right now. So like what is DXDAO in its current architecture formation before, and then like governance 2.0, like will be changed to that. So Augusto, do you want to walk us through this?
Yes, this is actually the infrastructure that we are using right now on mainnet. This is what we are aiming to change. We are doing gradual changes from Rinkeby to Arbitrum to Exile and lastly to mainnet. The process involved there is because most of our funds are in mainnet, so we are taking a step by step and testing everything before going live on mainnet. This is what we have right now on mainnet. This is the DAO stack infrastructure that we have been using on Alchemy. As you can see, it has a lot of layers, right? We have the infrastructure of the DAO stack smart contracts, which is actually super cool. It's been super useful for us. It has a lot of restrictions, but it worked for us so far. And we are extending and we build our wallet schemes and permission registry extensions around all the needs that arise from using the actual infra and ARC infrastructure.
Are those unique for each DAO deployed for DAO stack, or is it like there's one smart contracts that like different DAOs interact with?
As far as I know, there is only one implementation on the infra, and it gets replicated every time that you create a DAO that you created in DAO stack. It was using a version of the infrastructure. It depends on which ARC infra you were using, is the smart contract you were going to have. As far as I know, they were updated, and we are using an old version of the ARC smart contracts. And then what they have is the archive, that is a curated registry of DAOs. This is basically a registry of all the DAOs that we are registering on DAO stack, and the version that you have to use on the ARC smart contracts. The ARC graph, this is the graph implementation that they use in DAO stack to index all the information, because they have more than one DAO, right? This was planning to use a lot of DAOs, so it is a lot of information to index. If you index the information, it is way easier to access. This is what we are doing actually right now on DXgov, just for one DAO, which was took a lot of effort to get rid of this like centralization point. But for this it makes sense, because it was the first implementation of a DAO, of a registry of DAOs, and what they used the graph. Then the dApps and the DAOs. Well, the dApps is going to be the user interface applications, Alchemy, and the DAOs, well, the DAOs itself, right? This is what we are using right now on mainnet. And well, now I'm going to, I think you can pass to the next image. Okay, this is a more technical representation of the ARC infrastructure, the ARC smart contract. I just found this like by Googling, but I think it's all, but it represents what we are using right now in mainnet. We have schemes. The schemes is where you input all the information, right? The agent inputs. This is where you submit your proposals. And actually, this is where you submit your proposals. Then you have the voting machine that actually is not represented here, but it will be the agent's input, right? This is the voting machine that is going to be where you're going to be voting and doing the voting and staking. and the schemes are going to use a voting machine, and then we know when a proposal got enough votes, right, or stakes and votes to be executed. When that happens, it's going to go to the controller, where it is going to check if the constraints that are registered for that scheme are good enough, or if it complies with the constraints for that scheme. We are not using constraints from the controller. They when we talk about the DAO team, if we should have used it, they told us that they haven't tested it yet. So the constraints are something super cool and super powerful, and this is something that we implemented on our own. That is called Permission Registry. That is what we are using on DXgov now. It's a registry of actions that are allowed to be executed by each scheme. And then the controller, like you see, is a core, right? It's what controls the entire, what connects the schemes with the reputation contract, which is actually super important. It's a super important smart contract, and it's super simple. It's an ERC20. It's basically an ERC20 token that you cannot transfer, right? It has only the mint, burn, and balance of functions. The only way to generate reputation right now is via the controller, which is via the schemes, right? So if you have a scheme that is able to, actually right now every scheme is able to mint and burn reputation. On DXgov right now on our current infrastructure, you can mint and burn any as much reputation as you want, right? On any proposal. On DXgov, we added the limit. Each wallet scheme in DXgov is going to have a maximum reputation change allowed. This means that, for example, if the maximum reputation change is 5%, you won't be able to mint or burn 5% of reputation in one proposal. And what else? Well, avatars, tokens, funds, schemes, constraints, upgrade. Very important, the upgrade. This is something that we can use in the future to upgrade our controller, upgrade our avatar implementation, and have a better avatar, have a controller which is, we can do a few changes, we can optimize it, we can audit it. So we have the option to upgrade our current infrastructure, and this is actually the plan in the long run. We can go, I think, to the next image. This is DXgov infrastructure. A lot of things happening. The important thing is that the user is super happy because they are DXgov right there. Well, the first thing that happens is the proposal creation. Using is the green arrow. The proposal creation is going to be submitted directly to the schemes. You have two types of scheme. One is a quick wallet scheme, and one is a master wallet scheme. Quick wallet scheme, it can hold funds itself, and it won't be calling the controller, which will be calling the avatar, which can call other contracts or addresses, right? So this allows you to diversify funds and put it on different schemes and immediate access of funds, right?
So like the quick wallet scheme could basically have a treasury. And so you send would we have to send funds from the main avatar to the quick wallet scheme? Exactly.
We are doing right now, we are actually using this feature right now in DXgov on the swapper wallet scheme, where it's able to make it is faster, right? You can make quicker actions, but it cannot send and transfer that many amount of funds. So the idea would be like, okay, this scheme can be way faster, but we are going to use it as a relay between the swapper protocol and the avatar. So we will be setting permissions where the funds on the quick wallet scheme can only go to the avatar or to the swapper protocol. So this way we are protecting our flow of funds, and we are making them quicker.
So the swapper wallet scheme on Arbitrum that is creating all the farming campaigns right now is a version of the quick wallet. It's an instance of the quick wallet scheme.
Exactly. And right now, if you go and check the permission, you're going to see that right now you can do everything. This is something that we are going to, I think we are going to be doing maybe next week, where we are going to be reviewing and setting the final permissions for the swapper wallet scheme, maybe using removing the extra reputation that was mint once that we feel secure that we can save on using DXgov on Arbitrum with the actual rep that was minted there. And a very important part is the permission registry. This is the core part. This is super powerful because it allows us to set any permission to any scheme. Like, for example, this wallet scheme can call this smart contract and can execute any function with smart contract, or it can execute only this function on this smart contract. So we can set like wildcard permissions where we can allow, like we are doing on the multi-call. The multi-call has only a set, the multi-call that we're using on mainnet. It's actually very similar to the quick wallet scheme, but here we have more control over the permissions that we can set, and we can set global permissions. This means that, for example, we can set the permission the master wallet scheme, allowing only to transfer 100 Ether per proposal, right? Or 10 Ether per proposal. This is going to mitigate the attack where all our funds are just one proposal away, right? This is why we are being so cautious, and we have monitoring tools. We want to try to mitigate these attacks as possible. The limit of funds, the limit of reputation that can be burned or mint. This is actually a representation of very similar to what we are doing right now, but the wallet schemes, we are going to be able, this permission registry is going to allow us to have this flexibility to have different layers of security and choose what we want to do on each layer.
So just looking at these two, like, what did you change? I guess, and like we took the DX vote, like, and I guess this idea of like the controller maybe schemes added to it, or what exactly would you say is the difference?
The main thing is the red arrow from quick wallet scheme to other contracts and addresses, and the permission registry. Mainly that. So the permission is actually an extra contract that it is owned by the DAO, it is owned by the DXgov avatar. This is why if you want to change the permission, you need to submit the master wallet scheme, who calls the controller, who calls the avatar, and set the permissions. And even after that, we have a delay, right? It's not that you set the permission and you can execute it right away. You have to wait. For example, I think on XDAI, what the quick wallet scheme that we are going to be registering, and the permission registry that was deployed in XDAI has a delay of permission of 3 days. This means that you can allow something to, you can allow a scheme to interact with the other smart contract, but you need to wait 3 days in order to execute that action. This allows us to give us 3 days, right, time in order to, okay, we have the permission, someone wants to attack the DAO, wants to allow something that is not secure, right, it's not safe. So we have those 3 days to act on a majority vote to finally set the permission registry right.
So right now on mainnet, we have like 8 schemes, and you said the new one here is a quick wallet scheme. So are the existing schemes on mainnet essentially like master wallet schemes?
Yeah, we can. The idea is to remove all those schemes because, for example, you need an ENS scheme because you want to interact with ENS domains, right? You need a relayer scheme because you want to interact with this protocol in specific. Here it will be just okay. From where we want to interact with this new protocol, from the quick wallet scheme, from the master wallet scheme, from Omen squad scheme, from the swapper squad scheme. So depending on from where we want to interact, we set the permissions, and now we will have to wait this permission delay, and then we can interact. We won't need to be deploying and creating and submitting and auditing new schemes. We can use this flexible structure to do anything there.
So, but all the existing schemes on mainnet have that pattern of calling the controller, which calls the avatar.
Yeah, basically they have the master wallet scheme. The master wallet scheme is very similar to what we have right now, but the difference is our scheme is going to be consuming the permission registry. So imagine that what we have in mainnet right now is like the same thing without the permission registry and without the quick wallet.
And each scheme is very limited in what it can do.
Very limited. Every time that you want to do a new action, you need to register the scheme, you need to interact with the scheme registrar. That is actually, this is the ultimate power on the DAO, right? If you are able to register something new or to register a scheme, I can register my address as a scheme and I can do anything. I can, as soon as I register my address, I can mint a lot of reputation and I can take over the DAO. This is why we are going to have like a registered wallet scheme that is going to be super secure, and it's going to be the actions there are going to be super slow. But we won't need to add as many schemes as we have to on mainnet.
And this is live on Arbitrum again, like we have the.
This is live on Arbitrum. We are using it right now. We are testing this on Rinkeby, and we are going to be start testing the quick wallet scheme in XDAI very soon. We have a proposal to register the quick wallet scheme, which later I have to review and stake and share all the code that can be to be verified by the developers. But yeah, this is where we are going on mainnet. This is actually the final governance DXgov 1.5 version on mainnet. And the DX body machine, this is where governance 2.0 changes are going to happen. This is where the DX body machine is where all the governance changes are going to happen, and maybe something on the DXgov rep. But this is how we are going to function, and the reputation and all that logic is going to be represented on the DX body machine.
Yeah,
you have a question? Because,
Yeah.
okay.
Do we still need to whitelist contracts on quick wallet scheme and master wallet scheme?
Depends. You can allow to call any contract on the quick wallet scheme. If you want, you can say the quick wallet scheme can do anything. Every time you want to transfer an ERC20, that needs to be whitelisted. That yes. But you can allow to call any contract from the quick wallet scheme, because it will only have access to those funds, right? To the funds that are held on the quick wallet scheme. Let's say, I know, $100,000, not to the $100 million that we have in the avatar.
In terms of use case, do you see the quick wallet scheme replacing all the multi-sigs that we're using to do different things?
I think we can find a way to make that work. Yeah, that would be super interesting. Yes.
Yeah, another thing could be that we add like an ENS manager scheme with like just have a connection to the ENS contracts and have like a short information.
Yeah.
Like 1 day or something.
Yeah.
So depends. I think we need to like evaluate the security model, right?
it'd be cool to even.
The less schemes we have, the better, probably.
Yeah, the less scheme we have, the better. But we are going to need, like, for example, maybe the quick wallet scheme is going to be like super fast and not so secure. We need something not as secure as the master wallet scheme to register and to interact with ENS. So maybe we can have something in the middle. That's not bad, we can call it a deployment scheme or something like that can interact only with ENS, that is going to have no funds, and it's just going to execute proposals in, let's say, 4 days, and it's required 10% for boosted proposals to be executed. Another feature that we are going to have in this scheme, you are able to require a minimum amount of votes in boosted proposals. So there you can increase a lot the security.
So every time we do something with funds with the quick wallet scheme, we need to add the contract to a whitelist.
Depends. Yeah, if it is not whitelisted, yes.
Okay, so we have a whitelist.
We have the permission registry. That's everything is registered there, and in fact we can use it in other smart contracts in the DAO if we want. Any smart contract can register anything there. So if we want to use this permission registry infrastructure or way of allowing things to happen in other smart contracts on our DAO, on other products, this can happen because this is ultimately owned by the DAO, right?
Each scheme has its own boosting time and execution time, right? So if we wanted certain actions to have a longer consensus process, you can't do that within one scheme, right?
Because I think I was thinking of this with Geronimo's, is like maybe we have a 3-day normal ENS proposal process, but we have like, oh fuck, we've got a bug, we need to fix it. If we get 15% rep on an ENS proposal, it like executes in 12 hours or something, right? But that would probably not be through the same scheme. You would have to have like emergency ENS update that's 6 hours boosted, requires everybody in there.
Or you need 25%, in order to execute boosted proposals.
Yeah. I mean, it'd be exciting, I think, to do like quick governance things, but that would require like.
Yeah, we can have emergency schemes.
Yeah, but I guess then that's where you go for it.
Emergency scheme. So the idea, this was designed in a way to allow us, came up with all these ideas and requirements, and and implement it. Play with them. First, we need to interact them. We need to test them. We have the place to test them. We have Rinkeby. We have everything there. We can use Arbiter and Exile also as testing playgrounds because we have this fund there, and then mainnet. Okay, I think.
Yeah, and so like this is actually, this is not actually like what governance 2.0 was really like. This is kind of almost like
this is governance.
aside, yeah.
This is DXgov. This is blockchain governance. This has nothing to do with how the reputation is going to be handled. This is just the infrastructure. This appeared because we needed to have a decentralized infrastructure because DXgov is going to be up. It's not going to have any downtime, right?
Yeah.
It's not going to depend on DNS or subgraph or IPFS. It's just going to be working all the time. The only thing that you need is to connect to a new provider. So this was the need that arose for us to have DXgov. And then, well, the governance 2.0 appeared because we wanted to, we saw something that we wanted to change on our reputation. And
Well, that's what I was. So I mean, just to, so that was kind of, I guess, where we're at in terms of like what the structure is like looking, and then like DXvote, how it's adding different things, and then I think in a second we'll get to Ross, who's got like the roadmap for what like governance 2.0 means from like a technical implementation. But I think just before we do that, I think it's kind of important to just like let's review what kind of governance 2.0 and like where, and I think like the starting point, I guess, is like why governance 2.0, and maybe John, you're the best one to like give the backstory of this, but you can kind of, you know, the launching DXD, as soon as like that happened, you kind of like, there was almost like a running clock of when there's like a like there's a, you know, the imbalance between a DAO that has two different like tokens, one transferable, one non-transferable. So like, I don't know, how did we decide, like how did governance 2.0, the idea arrive?
Right, so it's important to understand that DXDAO evolved, right? First, there was reputation and no financial token, no capital had been raised, and then came DXD, and there was never any point in time where people like were able to sit down and actually design and build how those could be like aligned over the long term. So the whole point of governance 2.0 is to make sure that there is sustainable alignment like at the incentive layer, at the base layer of how the governance works between DXD or rep, or even better, to not even have those necessarily be seen as different groups, right? Just to have functioning, well-aligned governance of DXDAO. And yeah, and like the problem we have today is basically that DXD does not have say in the governance, does not have influence with governance or governance power. Rep has all the governance power, and then DXD is separate. So governance 2.0 is basically the effort to address that issue and fix that.
And I think we kicked off, I remember there was like we had like a working group for this, right? So there were some different parties kind of in there, obviously lots of different that have been involved with DXDAO, but also people from like DAOstack, people from 1KX, Delphi, some other people that would like participate on calls. And like I don't know, trying to remember the different systems, but like there was one presentation we had like everyone like gave their new system for like how to like govern DXDAO. I remember Gustos had like 5 versions of rep or something. It was like a kind of confusing, but in the end we kind of this ultimate like how do you combine them into a single voting power, right? The other ways to do it is like to have both participate but have like checks on those, versus like the idea here is like let's keep everything basically the same, and ultimately the voting power is like determined by these 2 core primitives that are like the DXDAO ecosystem, like rep and DXD. So that was kind of the impetus or kind of the end goal. But there are really kind of 3 components of the signal proposal where they have governance 2.0. The first and foremost is kind of what I think everyone is familiar with. This is like the new voting power equation. So this is the idea of proposals are passed or pass or fail based upon a new calculation that is derived from DXD influence and rep influence. And then this is how we calculate those things. So with DXD influence, there's a multiplier or like a voting power booster for the longer you have DXD staked, right? So the amount of DXD you have staked influences your DXD influence. But then like how far off into the future you want to stake that DXD or LP that DXD, that is a signal that you are bullish or you're committed to DXDAO. And so your DXD influence, share, and governance in voting power should go up. On the rep side, the kind of thing to mitigate against there is concentration of power in a certain number of addresses. So there's kind of two different things. Is one, we would encode what is the social consensus of DXDAO now, which is that address would not be able to have 4% of rep voting power. And that kind of, when you think about like reputation itself is really like a proof of contributions. And right now, those proof of contributions are also what's used to be the voting power in the DXDAO system. But this would kind of actually separate those so you could keep earning reputation, but the maximum amount of influence you would get would be that like 4%. So to use the, do you want to, oh, I thought you were, no, because I was getting the John Geronimo answer, where they're like contributing, right? They should be earning rep, but that like that doesn't necessarily mean they will increase the amount of their power or voting power. And then the second element is the kind of introduction of this decay function, which is just the idea when you stop earning rep, you should not be as influential as when you're like kind of an active worker. And so we have this a little bit now just from the idea of like rep inflation in general. Like when you have rep inflation, that diminishes the previous ones, but this is kind of a way of codifying this. And then like, yeah, we want to combine rep and DXD influence into a single like equation. That's the ultimate power source in DXDAO. And so the idea being that they, 50-50 is basically where we have it now. And yeah, so that's like the first one. I think we kind of talk about that when we go through some of like the technical implementations, like how do we implement this in a new system? But I think there are also two other ones that we maybe don't talk about as enough, or we don't know if we have as clear instructions on how we should do it. But I think first and foremost, like good governance incentives. I think this is pretty underrated in terms of what ultimately, like, I don't know, we need to figure out how to incentivize governance. And like, I think we're using the example of like Dave and I now, who I guess do a lot of like on-chain governance, submitting proposals or voting. Like we're motivated because we're getting paid by DXDAO and like we get reimbursed for our costs, but that's not really a scalable model to have lots of people that are actively contributing to governance that are doing it because they're incentivized, not because they like want to make sure DXDAO doesn't fail or, have some other like altruistic reason to do it. And we can talk about this in a minute, but I think a lot of it really will come down to these, like, I think like retroactive governance bonuses, like, because the question is like, what is good governance? And like, how can you reward good governance, but not have it be gameable, right? You can't say like anyone who submits a proposal gets paid like X amount of vested DXD, because then everyone will just like submit as many proposals as they have. It's only like quote unquote, I think I quoted in here, good proposals. So maybe we can figure out a way of like looking at proposals that were in the past and then being like, this was a good proposal, addresses that voted for it or staked on it or whatever, get a certain amount. And then the last element is this migration process to a new system. And I know there's been some discussion on this lately. And I think kind of looking at the starting point here, right, is DXDAO right now is 100% controlled, even in the current system, right, it's 100% controlled by rep holders. And this includes the treasury. It also even includes like the bonding curve. And in the initial launch of DXD, along with the bonding curve, which was like a fundraiser, you had a pre-mint of DXD that was released to the DXDAO treasury, which was really meant to begin to align the interest between rep holders and DXD holders. And like right now, that's the biggest alignment, is DXDAO happens to be the biggest DXD holder. So it is like, therefore, like incentivized there. So in changing this system, right, like those rep holders that have the incentive now, because they're the largest like DXD holders, if the system changes and the voting power changes, that kind of like shift will shift the incentive structure a bit. So that's why in this one there is that's kind of the underlying reason for the DXD distribution. And then on the other end, there's been a lot of DXD investors, I guess you call them investors, people that put money into the project, kind of have bought DXD or whatever, who don't have rep, right? And in the new system, I guess you should have mentioned this up here, you need to actually have both DXD and rep. Now, it can be any amount. You could have 0.1 DXD or some minimum amount, and then a lot of rep, or you could have a lot of DXD and just a little bit of a rep. But the idea being you need to have both of those. And so part of in having both of those, it needs to make sure that the current batch of rep holders has DXD so they can participate in governance the same way. And then the current batch of DXD holders has some rep to do that there. And so there's the 10,000 DXD, up to 10,000 DXD from the 100,000 DXD preprint that's proportionally distributed to rep holders with a 3-year vesting cliff, and then the 5% rep inflation to DXD holders as a way to kind of like bring them into governance, right? And so this is meant to better align interest. And I should say that in the I think one of the things we'll have to talk about in a bit in terms of how we implement this is like this will be I guess the snapshot and like the list will be something we need to involve lots of people in the community with in terms of what exactly like rep at what time. I know we haven't been able to do as many rep syncs on mainnet, so I think we're going to have to calculate mainnet rep. But I think this is going to be part of the whole governance 2.0 process, which is completely separate from like what is the actual like technical implementation.
Yeah, I had a comment on the comment. So the fact that voting power comes from having both DXD and reputation, I like to think of it as enabling different personas, basically like different types of stakeholders that would want to interact with DXgov to interact in the way that's like best for them. So like on one end, you might have investors or speculators who just want to buy DXD and hold it and have no interest in actually participating in governance. And that's fine. By doing that, they're not diluting other people's voting power in the system. And that's like totally fine, right? It's not a bad thing in the way that like maybe voter apathy and token voting might be seen in other DAOs today. On the other end, you might have a contributor who just wants to work for DXDAO, also not interested in governing, and they can be earning reputation, which like adds to their resume and maybe even enable different things in terms of identity on blockchain, and that's also totally fine. But then you have folks who actually are interested in governance, and they're going to have to like bridge that to the other side. Either if they're just starting as DXD holders, they're going to have to take enough interest to earn rep to allow them to have voting power, or if they are contributors, they have to hold on to enough DXD to allow them to become
Which are all like
and so
good.
like yeah, so like hopefully all the people who have voting power will actually be interested and incentivized to be active voters in governance. And like hopefully this is better than kind of systems we have today for like extreme voter apathy on these blockchain.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, I want to say that this makes people converge towards sweat equity. Like no matter how you,
No matter what, yeah.
Yeah, no matter what you do, like it incentivizes you to actually go, and even if it's a small proposal, if it's a small contribution, like participate in the actual governance, which I think in the long term this is going to be very meaningful in terms of like long tail contributions. And someone who just comes, they don't have to be super active, but they come once, maybe once or twice a year, they do a small contribution. That's kind of I guess the beauty of open source software in general. Many people can contribute very little.
And I'm just thinking about this with the DXD holders or like engaging, because I think if you look around at other governance, I guess DAOs in crypto, like 99% of token holders like don't want to participate in governance at all, right? But they all have that 99% has actually the same amount of say as the 1% that is like actually participating in governance. So it'd be interesting, I think, as an underrated part of governance 2.0 is like maybe it really creates like engaged token governance, because you actually have you have like an increased power of the token weight because you're only with other people that are interested in governance, and you've cut out all of the like empty, non-interested token speculators.
There's an avenue for token holders to become
right
governors, but they have to demonstrate enough like involvement to earn rep to get.
Yeah. Whereas like I think it's now actually hard for some token holders, even in a token-based governance system, to like get involved with governance.
Are we worried about, currently there's like 500 governors of DXgov,
Mm-hmm.
and this could overnight turn into like 40 governors.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you're way less decentralized.
Well, no, because I think, how does it turn to 40 governors?
If only 40 rep holders have DXD.
Well, that's why we do this.
Yeah,
We give
You give all rep holders DXD.
yeah.
And then you give the DXD holders rep.
I think we
So
will
everyone
get
has
more
that.
decentralized.
Did they claim it?
Yeah. I mean,
They have to the distribution process. We need to decide later. There are two ways, or either they claim it or we do an airdrop. Both ways are possible. We are going to have the same outcome. Rep holders are going to get DXC, and
Right.
DXC are going to have.
Well, it's like opt-in or
this one does say, this is just funny to, I think it says claimed within 6 months of the distribution.
no.
That's just for DXD, and I don't, you know.
Yeah. Another point that I just wanted to mention is that we are going to be using DXC also for the voting machine, right?
Right.
So if you want to stake, you need DXC, and that is going to be hopefully. I mean, we are going to need our own token for our governance, right?
As a small thing, we might need to consider on-ramp a wee bit better. So currently, if a new contributor came along, having them have to buy DXD is maybe not the best UX. It's not difficult, right? We just need to think about some initial ways of giving them that instead of maybe vesting their DXD to begin with. But vice versa as well, right? We need to have
Exactly.
relatively easy ways for DXD investors, new people to
Absolutely, get rep.
get their first
Oh,
little
very
bit of rep.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's, we can think about
I mean, I think we feel more confident about doing those because, like, with governance 2.0, because then we have a system that can scale that. And I'm pretty sure we have in here that the DXD that's vesting can be used for voting, but I can't find it in here somewhere.
What was this 3-year vesting clip?
But you can still use, I remember us talking about that.
Yeah, I remember that because that's the point. And I actually remember when John was saying it's like it's good for new contributors in the way of like if you want to be active in governance, like it's pretty easy for you to do it because as soon as you start contributing, like you're going to get a certain amount of rep, and all the other rep is going to start to decay very quickly. Right? If you go into like a startup now, it's like whoever was in power, like then are going to maintain it. But it's something actually I think a lot of other projects are thinking about now is like, how do you like bring in new contributors when like the new contributors are like, well, I want to like take power from like that, So just in terms of like, I think just to kind of think of these discussion items, we kind of talked about these there. I mean, we're going to talk about these in a second, but just to give you something like to chew on here. And then now let's do, this is the attack plan. I think everything is an attack plan. Yeah.
Trademark Registry.
Oh yeah.
Hey, I have a question about the snapshot. So is it 6 months? So like all the rep we earn in the next 6 months, does that count for the DX?
No, so it's from so it was like a month ago, right? So we'll have to figure out how we like calculate that. Yeah, or the date that we did. Yeah, we didn't like took the snapshot. There's no like list of things, but like that's what we'll like go back and reference and be like, well, what was the time at that?
Okay. And is it on XI or mainnet?
So it is mainnet rep, and this is something we're going to have to address because there has not been. When we were doing this, we were doing almost all of our was on
was
X.
on mainnet.
Was on
The
mainnet,
snapshot
right?
we are taking is XIT and XCT.
Yeah, but like a lot of earned mainnet rep has not been claimed yet on mainnet, and I think that should be included in this because that's where contributors on there. And we do say that in the Signal proposal, there is if you submit on any on XDI or any authorized DXDAO, not anointed one.
Do we have thoughts on the, I'm slightly biased here, right? I have obviously a reason behind that, say, asking this. Do you have a reason for having the snapshot taken so long ago? Because a lot of people that got rep at that snapshot time probably aren't still active contributors. Few people that have left.
I think
There's a lot of
another
new
snapshot,
contributors also.
I think I can address that, right? So like really the point of this distribution is sort of a bargain between the DXD holders and the existing rep holders. And and really primarily the existing rep holders that were around even before DXD was launched, right? So, I mean, in theory, contributors who have been earning rep are also earning DXD as they're going, and hopefully like fit well into the system. But yeah, when this was passed, 6 months actually sort of felt far into the future.
And actually,
now it's just is them.
the primary point of it was what John was saying, but the 6 months into the future was actually to try to do what you were saying, which is like, over this 6 months, if you contribute, you will get a part of this.
Yeah.
But it was like,
I just
the
wonder-
starting point was like, really is
Yeah.
like the bargaining. Like,
I just wonder if maybe the better solution might be when we launch it, take a snapshot.
I remember
Because
talking.
you can't game, right?
No, I mean, I
You
remember
have to
the 6 month. Yeah, I mean, but then
Sound
the,
like an airdrop.
I think,
Well, and I just the counterbalance to that, obviously biased view of
Yeah,
Ross here is
yeah,
that if you were paying attention to the market chatter, I think it was Saturday night for those of you who have an exciting life or on Discord on a Saturday night, is that some of the active DXD holders are kind of saying the opposite thing, which is like, why are you giving out DXD at all?
Right.
And these are folks that maybe are more recently active, like maybe bought their DXD more recently. And one of the comments was, wait, who was involved when we did this?
Yeah.
And I was there answering, well, it was 1KX and Delphi and and this is the largest DXD holder now,
Yeah,
Hedgehog, Paintfog, kind of making comments like, well, Delphi doesn't hold any DXD anymore. I wasn't around then,
You might not be around tomorrow.
yeah, that's
Right,
that's the key
exactly.
point, right? And I think that's a really key point. I think for like even like how Hedgehog is.
He also made another keen observation, which is that DXD holders technically don't have a lot of leverage in this situation because they can't like.
Right.
They don't have that.
So,
It's actually zero. Yeah.
Yeah.
well, no, I wouldn't say they have no leverage. They have no technical, like actual direct leverage on the
Yeah,
treasury,
right.
But I do think there is leverage. Like, I mean, they are the people who provided the capital. There's definitely leverage there, and so like, I mean, this bargain is necessary. I'm just saying there is like.
Yeah, I think there may be more discussion about this as we go on as well. There's also possibility, right, for additional signal votes. The previous one was 8 months ago, and I had 2 votes. We could do more if we needed to.
Yeah, have more
As like
votes on
just
that
an
stuff.
updated one, going through it again.
Yeah.
We can also use guilds. If they're saying they don't have a voice, we could have a
Yeah,
voice.
I think I don't know if you're familiar. Maybe everyone doesn't follow American politics, but I would think of this as closer to like the infrastructure bill, which is like, here's this big piece of legislation that's coming down, and it's really difficult to get like these stakeholders on, and it's like, add whatever you want and we can kind of agree, but it's hard to recreate like
The structure.
yeah. And I think because we're gonna have to implement this, and then there's gonna be a whole other like decisions that weren't thought of on that.
Yeah.
But like definitely we should be like always revisiting our governance like structures and systems, making improvements. We were talking about delegation, I think at lunch, which was discussed during this, but ultimately not part of that. And I think this is actually, and I think like, to your point, like this is not actually. This is about, and you can see it here, this is about migration process to a new system. Like we should have a new system that accomplishes the compensation like alignment that you're talking about, but that's not actually like part of the core like voting power distribution. Whereas like this is like realigning that and like, okay, now it's, more adjustable.
Yeah, it's a pity that we haven't revisited the guild. We haven't looking for DXC guild for a year now. And I wrote the smart contracts, we audit them. And I think I don't know if someone else really care about technically implementing it. Maybe I was the only one or the only one who I'm still pushing for the DXC guild because that's the only way and the only place where the DXC holders can express their signals. And again, it can be on chain and that's it. That can be verified. So yeah, it would be great if we can revisit them later because it's something super useful. We need it now.
Yeah, but I feel like the focus of like recreating the voting power contract is a bit more important. Like, and this might be like a short-term solution, but like.
Well, they gave us. I mean, it's DXC holders.
It's
right? So
You don't really have a DAO unless you have a treasury.
exactly.
And you don't really have anything to vote on unless there's funds in the treasury. And so no matter what DXD like guild has, ultimately it only matters if they have things that are worth governing. And DXD holders don't have anything that are worth governing.
Well,
right now.
Augusto would want to give the DXD guild rep.
That makes sense.
Oh,
I mean,
so yeah.
So even if you give them 10% rep, they're gonna be like, oh, what is this? We
Yeah.
deserve more. We should have 20. And then what is that? We should have
They
30.
had the GOV 2.0 voting power plus 10%, or not 10%, maybe lower at that point, but they had both.
And nylon.
But this
Nylon,
this
even
addresses the core issue of the problem,
Yeah.
which is like having DXD have it staked long term and then incentivizing to participate.
yeah,
So,
but
like,
without
we should,
without
the
hearing them,
guilds-
you guys just giving them something
Yeah.
without hearing them, without listening to their needs. Maybe maybe this is not
No,
what
but
they
that-
need. You know,
that
we are
was-
just deciding for them.
No, it's not. We had a work.
Yeah, but you are deciding for them. DXD called them. I mean, DXgov people were there and DXD called them, but now they say, I wasn't there. I don't like it. So it would be great if we have a place where they can express their concerns in a cryptographically proof way, right? And that's it. And that would be the last answer.
But
I think it's a great idea, but like, I don't want it to, I think it's kind of inefficient at this stage.
Yeah.
To make
That's
it
the problem. I think it's a great idea, but I just think that we're already so far out on time and so many things have changed and the circumstances will continue to change. And I do think Chris has a point that we have to kind of stick to the main tenets of what we did because that took 6 months to get everyone on board with.
and it involved like a lot of major DXD holders, and it was open to the community, and many people have joined and listened and weighed in, and I don't know. It was
I think
sort
It
of
was a
gratifying.
lot of energy.
I think
Yeah, there was a lot of energy.
some points there in the governance 2.0, something can be revisited. One, I mean, not the formula, right? But maybe the airdrop allocation, maybe use a lower amount.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not okay. Let's not shutting down this, but we can revisit the amounts because these decisions were made like a year
the
ago.
parameters, but the core idea, like this is what we should be looking at.
I think
Yeah.
it's important, like, when you think about like, what is the point of a signal proposal, or like what is governance, like DXDAO. Like, to me, ultimately, like DXDAO governance is only about like what it can execute on chain event, And so like what you're talking about here is like a new, I guess, like the signal proposal ties us to execution in the future. And so then when we do that execution in the future, we have to reference that. But that's really the power of the signal proposal, is that it like creates the boundaries on how we end up executing things. And it's a signaling mechanism.
It's really DXD holders who hold the bonding curve too.
I mean, that's what I wanted to explain. Yeah, so to get to Gov 2.0, so I think I can't remember when I had the signal proposal. I think it was
Well, because
October.
we did it.
But like,
No, it was them though.
No.
They put up,
No,
let's put up.
No, that's it. It was.
yeah, it was Chris. It was
It
Chris.
was DXgov reputation who shut it down the one.
Yeah.
If we didn't want to do
That's
it,
the whole point.
we were in our power. So yeah, we did because we listened to
Whose
them.
voice was it?
Well, then
The
I mean,
whole thing.
but I think it's fine to have voice and then like, power, how those like actually interact. I think ultimately you want to have the power distribution.
Power
But
doesn't change.
Yeah.
That's it.
But I
So
think-
it shows that DXD holders had a strong voice.
Yeah.
They did.
Yeah. Well, are we showing that now?
The DXD buyback.
We've bought back 6,000. I was like, we bought like 6,000 DXT. Like, there has been. So I mean, I guess to get to Gov 2.0, like this is going back to like history of. So the bonding curve launched May, right? DXD is born, and then like you said, I think you were saying 3,000 ETH early, but then I think it was like August when it just kind of like took off, and lots of influx in the community. The price on the bonding curve goes to 1.2 ETH, and then like that's mid-September. And then over the coming months, like ETH starts to moon, right? So that 1.02 ETH price on DXD like suddenly becomes, 1,000 or 1,500. So it kind of goes down a lot. So there's a lot of, animosity in the community as the price of ETH is rising, but the price of DXD is not following along with. And so that's kind of all happening when this whole governance 2.0 idea was being implemented. And I remember someone at the time, I think it was Zet, who was saying, all of these things are kind of together, right? Like the buyback happening, shutting down the bonding curve, like governance 2.0, they're all like aligned as like a signal to DXD holders. But anyway, all right, let's go
And I
through.
think, well, I'm just like on Augusto was saying, I do think like giving rep to a guild would be a little bit redundant and maybe dilute the governance 2.0 plan, and that the focus priority should be on the governance 2.0. But if guilds are easy to deploy, having signal from purely DXD holders like could be a useful like data point.
Yeah, so on that, we're 100% going to have guilds anyway, so you need to solve guilds.
Yeah.
So technically from our side, it's not time consumption isn't an issue.
So, but once we have governance 2.0, is there a need for a DXD?
The only reason for one would be signals, and I like the idea of it from signals in two ways. Signals in that they can make proposals and vote in them, signal proposals, and that if they could vote on something and we can have it show up in DX vote as the guild voting for something, kind of be like the guild unified, like voted with their rep allocation to this. It's quite a good display in DX vote to have that. Not just
I'm gonna counter it a little bit, just because in this process, we thought about actually just doing a kind of what Chris was talking about, which was like using a checks and balances type structure where DXD holders had equal voting power to rep holders, and it was kind of just like two different branches of government. But we felt that it didn't unify interests.
Okay.
So if we have this, it's still gonna be
Yeah.
us versus them thing. That's the one.
Well, so I would say the governance 2.0 actually requires staking, right? Not everyone's going to stake at DXD. The guild kind of gives a nice way for people that own DXD but aren't super into
I think-
it.
wait, so
Have something
I think-
to
They have a
back it.
voice if they don't.
Well, they would have a smaller voice, right? Because it'd be
Yeah, but it gives them legitimacy to a voice where, like, I'm not sure, like, DXDAO speaks with its, like, the power of, like, the voters, I guess. So here you'd be creating, like, a governance system that allows DXD holders to vote, presumably would just be majority. And then the outcome of that would have the authority of coming from DXD holders. And, like, I don't know if that's a good governance system to, like, determine the outcome of DXD holders. It's just based on, like, majority. And then you kind of go into how would you design that one. But we have, I think, Nathan.
Oh,
You'd
yeah.
like to speak?
Yeah, I got a question. You know how reputation is non-transferable, you cannot purchase it. So basically rep holders have a limit on the DXD they're getting, but what is the security against some big whale DXD holder distributing his or her DXD into many wallets and receiving, even if it's proportional, it's still kind of like an undesired scenario where they distribute the DXD to many wallets and receive rep. And then they can sell that DXD, but they get to keep the rep.
So I think this is a good question. I think this is protected with, you have to have rep on your address to be able to vote with your DXD. And so rep is like Sybil resistant, I guess we could kind of say, because we could go back and track where you got that rep from. And so I guess they would already have had to do that DXD distribution to have done a bunch of different wallets, because then the only way they would earn the new rep would be through the 5% inflation, right? So, but going forward, they won't be able to earn rep through their DXD. And then they won't be able to have rep on multiple addresses, because it's actually gonna be very difficult to earn rep on multiple addresses, right? Because you have to have a proposal. It has to be some like kind of track record for it. The easiest way to earn rep historically will have been the staking period and this like inflation that goes to DXD holders.
And working.
Right. But that's not the easiest.
I mean, yeah. I guess I do think it is a low-hanging fruit, and like I said before, it converges to incentivize anyone to come and do something,
right,
and request rep for it, and make a proposal, be a part of government.
Yeah, and it's also the counter to like, I mean, I do think rep has had a very like labor-heavy distribution the last year, but like at different times of the rep distribution, like it has different elements, and I think it's good to have a diversification of sources.
The Discord reps are good. So I remember Nylon for a while was trying to mirror the mainnet rep to our XDI rep. How close were we? Has anyone checked on like what the divergence is based off of the snapshot from a month ago?
I mean, mainnet rep is like in shambles.
Yeah, it's not even remotely.
So we have to fix this,
yeah.
right?
I mean, so yeah, I guess
it's like again
yeah.
that asterisk of like we need to fix these details.
Yeah, it's a really
yeah.
I think we have everything though, because we have XDI, we have like the
Right.
record, and we kind of like go look, and then we're gonna need to get like another approval or authority. Like this is but again, that's what happens. Like whenever it's executed, it's like you can only execute things with like this is the list. So if people like DXDAO disagrees, like they can vote it down, but we need to get that list. That list is going to take time.
Good work, everybody.
No.
Yeah, so I guess on Gusto, I'm wondering if, like this is for you and Ross, I guess, in the DX, in the Guild Dev.
GovDev.
Guild
Dev is not bad.
Like the way I'm seeing this right now, this whole like governance 2.0, which is just the voting power, we can call it the voting power formula. That's a sort of like a project of its own. Now,
So I can walk through this a wee bit and explain that. There was a question about that, or is it just about how that would look technically?
I don't know how that would look technically, but I don't know. This is on your roadmap, like
Yeah, so I was just going to walk through this quickly and explain a wee bit the more technical side, and maybe this can help me in places, I'm sure as well. So yeah, I've gone over this attack plan / roadmap before. So I'll briefly mention kind of how it's structured. So the alchemy deprecated in the middle sort of splits it into two main parts. The first part is kind of related to the architecture that Augusto showed previously. So we have the new schemes, we have the new registrar and the Permissions Registry. Essentially, we have that in Arbitrum. Phase 1 and Phase 2, Governance 2.0 work is essentially just replicating that into XI and mainnet. So it's not directly Governance 2.0 related, it's more preparation for that.
And that is more than just the DXD voting machine?
No, that is just the
It's
DXD
just the
voting
DXD machine.
It's
That's
just
only
we
on
need to be
mainnet.
careful, right?
Right.
This is us changing how our governance and mainnet works.
Right. But I guess going, like, Gusto, maybe like this red line,
Yes.
right? I guess we don't have this on
We
mainnet,
don't.
right?
We don't have that and the permission registry.
And are we going to, or are we just going to change
we are,
this?
We are going to. That is actually what is happening right now on XI. For example, to register the quick wallet scheme, I had to deploy the permission registry and the DXD body machine. So we have already a DXD body machine in XI. We are not using it yet, right? Because the quick wallet scheme is not registered. But this is what we are going to be deploying on mainnet too.
Yeah, so that work isn't technically difficult. It's more of an operations thing. We need to be 100%.
Yeah.
Because that's like, if we fuck that up, that's like it's a lot at risk. But yeah, once we fully transition to that new architecture, that's when the proper changes and implementation and deployment of Gov 2.0 starts essentially. That's in Phase 3.
So sorry, the DXD voting machine, when I think of that now, I'm just thinking of like, that's what is the staking of Gen.
Yeah.
But then I guess this is, but voting machine 2.0
but it gets
also includes the voting power recalculation.
Exactly.
So it's like the DXD voting machine would be doing holographic consensus staking with DXD and like managing that while also doing the calculation of how much
It's just
voting power.
plugging out the reputation contract and adding like a different balance of calculation. That's including the rep, including other stuff.
Yeah, so
like how complex? I mean, it's just replacing sort of like the DXL rep, we can call it.
Or adding something else on top of that. Just remember, Ethereum smart contracts are Turing complete, so we have a lot of space to play around. You know, we need the final requirements of where do we want to stake, how much how we know how the formula is going to be. We have been chatting about this with them and Chris today. We want to use ERC20 staking, and I guess the idea is to, okay, this ERC20 token is going to have this amount of weight, right, in the reputation formula, and you need at least to stake for this certain amount of time. So we are going to design, I think the idea, what we have so far is to design a staking contract that is going to manage this, or you are going to be able to add ERC20 tokens that are going to be staking, for example, on liquidity pools or things like that. So this is what we are going to be doing. Right now we have DXD voting machine 1.1, if you want to call it that. And in Phase 3, we are going to get to deploy voting machine 2.0 on Rinkeby and Arbitrum.
So is there like another box in between DXDAO rep and DXDAO voting machine, which is the calculation, or is that like
DXDAO rep will grow into
there is maybe this. Of course, this diagram is going to be updated in the design level, right? But we may have a new box around there that is going to be like DXD staking or something else. That is going to be taken into account.
Yeah, but the rep will be moving into the voting machine.
Yeah, I mean, but there will be like the reputation contract will still be. Oh no!
But they ran out from the.
Oh, we do have
Well,
the
you
plug
said
is
rep
there.
moves into the voting machine?
Yeah, right.
Well, you have the rep contract still exists.
Yeah,
we can use a actual rep.
calculation. Well, we went to the because we have a new calculation.
But there's no calculation now.
There's no calculation. No, that's
Yeah, okay.
We are just getting the plain ERC20, and we get it, and we are going to say, okay, this is the replication that we are having now, the native rep, and now we do something else because this is the final rep.
So
This is like
It's rep plus this.
this
plus
rep
this, and that's
plus
the result.
something else.
So currently we're just consuming the rep, right? Then we'll have the staking contract, and then that'll go into a formula that will calculate that from. That's the large change of Gov 2.0.
Yeah.
That's the largest change.
Yeah, okay, yeah. 'cause
In theory, once you do that, we would add Gov 2.0. There's a bunch of other stuff you need to throw alongside that, of course. Depending on the slides that we now can't see.
I mean, that's the
questions,
big.
There's like a bunch of what that we can do around around incentivizing people to use Gov 2.0 and things that we want to include in there. But the main mark is just that formula.
Yeah.
Well,
Implementing that formula.
On a developer team, yes.
What do you
I'm
mean?
just
Sorry,
kidding.
not staking?
You know, like
Like,
staking?
like people that don't want to use holographic consensus but still want to use DXvote for their token. Let's say they only have a token.
Oh,
They
you
use
mean- oh,
DXvote
you- okay.
with no rep, they know.
Yeah, it's just configured.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can configure. We can just have a config that's like, do you want?
Yeah,
Just
so
like
it's
all.
built to be flexible so it
Yeah.
fits what everyone else
Yeah,
wants to do themselves.
Of course.
And you can have recommendations, but that's awesome.
And well, these and another features that are going to be later on DXgov, like signing vote. This is
Yeah.
going to be very good features.
Yeah, I don't know. So wait, can you go back one slide? Wait, where are the questions?
Oh yeah, I was yeah.
Oh, here, yeah. So there's a few things we could talk about here, I guess.
So I think the good governance one, maybe that's something we talk over like the next week. I don't know if we need we're in more like brainstorm, what is good governance phase for them, like what are the specifics of that? I think a key question, and it is almost more like operational, but like how does Gov 2.0 work across chains? So I think pure token-based governance has real problems cross-chain. I think our reputation system that we're using like on multi-chains is working out really well because we just clone it. We forgot the sync. Oh, I could. What are with the Gov 2.0 system? Are we going to have a Gov 2.0 base on Arbitrum, a Gov 2.0 base on XDAI, and a Gov 2.0 base on mainnet?
So I guess do you want to start by summarizing what we were talking about at lunch?
Well, I guess let's start with does that we still want to have that, or is this a DXDAO mainnet base rules them all? Because I think it's been really nice that wherever we have a product, we have to have a governance capability there. I think
I guess this might be like sort of like a philosophical question about DXDAO, whether we deploy different bases and they have to adhere and be mirrored to the DXDAO mainnet, or are these different DAOs that sort of diverge and become their own thing? This is also for products. If we want to deploy, Swapper as a DAO that maybe owes some revenue share to DXDAO, but maybe the reputation changes, it diverge and become its own thing.
Yeah.
So,
I'd argue it's not philosophical. I think if it was just in theory, hypothetically, I think we would want one to rule them all. One, and it's the same across all chain, right? All chains.
I like the flow down.
Yeah.
I like the mainnet rep flows down.
It starts something and then it kind of flows in its own direction, and I think it's important because I don't know, some people might like the DAO that we're going to deploy on Avalanche, or I don't know.
We have two options. One is that we end up using XI because mainnet is super expensive, right? And that is why we like Arbitrum also now, because XI and Arbitrum are cheap to vote and everyone can use it, and we don't need to be responded that much. So another option, if we want to be used on other chain, we have two options. One is we deploy DAO there, and we deploy DAO, the reputation, pretty much like we did with Arbitrum, or something that is going to be implemented in Kenosi Safe that is going to be able to work across chains on the same multi-signature wallet. So we can replicate that, right? Because they are going to be executing things on multiple chains from a smart contract wallet, and we need to do the same from the avatar. So I guess later, in a month, 2 months, we can revisit this question and see what are the technical capabilities that we have, because we might be able to do the same. I think we should be able to do the same, to execute, for example, proposals or actions from the avatar on, I don't know, Arbitrum, right? Without the need of the Arbitrum DAO. But we actually like the Arbitrum DAO because, again, it is something where we can take cheaper actions from the user.
Yeah.
Do you, like, to your point, do you think if we have 10 bases, can we scale?
Oh my God, no.
I said like it's almost the same
No,
thing.
no.
I was like,
Please, no.
I said 20 or
Yeah,
something.
you
No, I
said
said
no.
Like, if those bases have economic like value, right? Does that work?
I think the starting point is like, so right now we are on mainnet, XDAI, and Arbitrum, and those are like really like unique, good, like they're different, right? Arbitrum's secure, but like maybe can scale. XDAI is super cheap, and I think there's not like a huge need to be on another chain from pure governance. The thing that's driving us or pulling us is what Zet was saying, is we need to go where our products go, right? And Swapper, like I don't know how many chains we want Swapper on, but we need to have some way of DXDAO owning that. And then that's what pulls us into like, well, how do we have a governance system on that chain?
So maybe this, what Kenos is doing, maybe we
I
will
was also thinking, like, I don't know, like having governance spread out across chain, like I think it's hard enough to keep track of like XDAI and mainnet and just adding multiple bases.
Yeah. Yes,
into, like our whole process, like.
So I think that's part of UI and UX. I think that's something we need to solve.
Oh no, it's not only you.
But like, I mean, Apple has companies in like 100 different countries, right? And they're like separate entities, and so maybe that's the same way. And like, how do they all coordinate? How do they make decisions? It's really hard, but like that's the scale we're trying to.
But having like separate.
But the issue with the cross-chain communication thing is it's all reliant on what Gnosis is doing. Gnosis could be going like, oh, we couldn't be bothered with our solution and it's something crap. Or it could be super complicated and not something we can.
We need to check out what's happening there, because if we are able to execute DAO actions, approval mainnet, Arbitrum, XDAI, any of our bases on other chains, so that's going up.
I think. But you want to execute from mainnet?
Well, this is the key scenario to
from
think.
anyone.
Regardless of what we end up doing, whatever bases there will always be an Ethereum mainnet base, and it's always going to be super expensive to interact with. So then the question, and that's going to, well, this is where we can continue the conversation. But like the question is, how can we have, and this is, I think I remember Governance 2.0 Sky, we talked about this really in terms of scalable governance there, but it didn't really get that much in the final answer. But like, how do we have a proposal on mainnet that truly can be voted on by like all rep holders? Because like that's the end. It doesn't matter how slow it is. Maybe we're outsourcing all the other governance decisions we have to like more effective bases, but like, how do we have, it's really cheap voting.
Yeah, no, my God. Hopefully it's going to happen on the, I mean, you're going to be able to see it in DXgov phase 3 or 4. There we are going to have the testing ground. We are going to have the most efficient DX voting machine that we can have. And there we will have to revisit. Like what?
I mean, your version of Snapshot, but in DXgov, but you're an on-chain version, right?
There's still issues with that.
Why everyone compares to the Snapshot?
Yeah,
but
it has nothing to do with Snapshot.
Yes.
Snapshot is a centralized.
What are you saying when you say that? So sign voting, is this what you're saying, or?
Yes, I'm voting. Yes, this is something that we are going to be fixing in the next phases.
But like, what's the cost of voting in like?
No, yet.
But
the idea.
To sign a vote, to sign a vote, imagine that if you can sign 50% of the representation, you just sign it, no cost, that's it. And then you can execute it all at once.
So basically condense the cost of everybody voting to the cost of one person voting, and everybody being scalable to any number. That's the idea.
I guess.
Well, and you know what that describes.
It's going to be expensive, right? But there is no reason to have.
You also have to solve the segment.
Yeah, there is no reason to have 10 people spending voting, getting 20% and then no passing. When if you can get, 20 people, you gather their signatures on 50% and then you execute that. Maybe it's going to cost you, half an ether, but it will be enough for us to take majority vote in case we need it. Just sign, we are not paying for it, or maybe the DXgov paying for it.
Yeah, kind of regardless of going back to like the cross-chain stuff, because that's not cross-chain, that's how do we get people to the mainnet. The cross-chain stuff, the question is how do we calculate voting power if we have multiple cases? If we don't have the cross-chain communication side, are we okay with having this?
Sorry, I think that is cross-chain because like that's another chain is what he's talking about.
Is it? Can we do that cross-chain?
I mean, so
Yes.
Like the off-chain chain. I wouldn't call it another chain.
I know, but this is what I think is like what John was describing. These are all roll-ups.
We can.
Right? It's yeah. I mean, can you have? Yeah. So I mean, I think at the end of the day, it's
Where do you record?
this is the problem everyone's trying to solve.
This is what we are going to fix.
But how do you record it on chain without a transaction?
We are not recording on chain. We are going to record it on our distributed protocols.
I don't like the idea of us having a
On
reliance
Swarm.
that. I like the idea of
Swarm
having that as an
Swarm.
option for cheaper voting, but if we rely on that for cross-chain communication, that's now.
I mean, just saying that it's an
Something we
option.
rely on
Later we are going to revisit.
But it's not an option if we need it for cross-chain and for voting power, right? If we use that as for cross-chain, it's something we rely on. 'Cause it
I
will
mean,
have to
if
be
we need
cross-chain.
we are going to only need to execute cross-chain operations if we don't have a base there. Right now, if I don't know, a fork of Arbitrum appear like Mate Arbitrum, and we want to execute things in Mate Arbitrum, we will be able to do it just by signing the operation from the avatar, and this meta transaction is going to be able to be executed by this smart contract on Mate Arbitrum because we have the meta transaction already signed and we can execute it. If not, you need to fork all the DAO like we did into Arbitrum, the same thing we did, but you need to do it on Mate Arbitrum and then.
I would just say we're very early. We're going to have a lot of interesting technical problems to tackle.
Oh yes.
Well, the question also is how do we calculate the staking? Do we have staking on multiple networks? How do you calculate the power there?
That would be another question. Yes.
Yeah.
Something that reads
Do
multiple.
we say you can only stake on mainnet?
No, because you want it to go where the products are.
What about a safe that on one chain that can execute on one chain?
This is the.
That's what.
This is Gnosis safe.
This is what we are going to copy from Gnosis Safe. It's going to be our avatar. Gnosis Safe, my wallet is going to be our avatar. We need to change the avatar, upgrade the controller, another functionality there. But we have a smart contract. We can write tests for it. We can research. We can test it. And when we feel confident, we go for it.
If we're doing that, Gnosis might want to be, I don't know, to give some help.
Yeah, I mean, they're already helping us. We are forking their stuff and we are doing it. So they help us a lot already. Like,
did you see Felix's tweet, Storm, 2 days ago?
No.
It was about how Swap is a great tool for DAOs to manage their treasury. And it was like literally, like clearly he had just like been talking to you or like about like, but I was like, this is Gnosis Protocol V1, but it's all about CowSwap. So I guess they're building it. I don't know. Didn't mention DXDAO. I was hoping for a DXDAO reference.
Did we talk about Zodiac at all? I know that's multi-sig based, but like how that could be used cross-chain?
Yeah, I think it's similar, like the execution
But it's
element.
multi-sig.
Yeah. Well, it's more of like I'm pretty sure what they're saying is the execution element would be able to be used to take that. Yeah, because yeah. I mean, I guess like I don't know much, but I feel like Gnosis Safe is just like
it's going to be
this
in the avatar,
right?
Yeah.
And so when they have other things, they're like plugging it, or I don't know how it works, but they are like basically missing this voting machine element. That's why you can only have signatures.
Right, which is fine for GNO.
Yeah.
Then if you go, can you go to the roadmap? Governance 2.0, fully Governance 2.0 release. That is after phase 4. If you can see phase 4, it says migrate all schemes to DXD voting machine 2.0. An important thing to remark here is that each scheme uses only one voting machine. So later, if we want to change a scheme, we need to unregister, and we need to register the same scheme with the same parameters, but using another voting machine.
It could be interesting to have a voting machine that had different like weights.
We can have one voting machine per scheme. We can have multiple voting machines if we want.
Or like different voting power, basically, for different schemes. But maybe that's too confusing.
There's a lot to think about.
Really fun though. Great work, guys. Excited to see this.
Yeah, we finished.
That's such a clap. All right, I think we may stop. Oh, thank you. Was that from you? Oh.
No, I wanted to.
All right, now the question is, how do we market this to more? We open the window.
Yeah, that's the point.
Should we take a 10-minute break and let some
Oh.
fresh air in and stuff?
Yeah, then we have a
Oh,
treasury
yeah?
update.
Oh, wow.
Man.
I want to go to the pool.
We could do it in like 30 minutes or something.
Or do it now and just finish it quickly.
Dan wants to get it.
Yeah.
No,
Should we just get it done?
Yeah.
Then we can all go to
Just
master.
open some windows.
Okay, let's get it done.
Yeah.
What's the name?
Air.
I'll keep it very short, okay?
Did you send it to me? You plug in?
You have like 15 slides, man.
What are we doing
Oh,
tonight?
no, you kind of keep that short, you know? 1 minute each slide, 20 minutes.
We just withdrew 3,300 DXT.
Oh, it worked?
Buyback.
Yeah, that's sweet.
1.9 million DXT. and
More.
Oh, isn't the
More.
most exciting? I think this is the most exciting proposal.
So you were not listening.
Yeah, I was
That was
so
like,
worried it's not gonna
it's
go
fucking
through or
sweet. And then it
something.
goes and you're like, wow. So how much is it? That's like,
1.9 million.
that's sweet. It's so sweet. You guys should execute proposals like that sometimes because it's so
Yeah, let's
nice
go.
to just be like,
Burn it.
and then it like just shows up.
Full night tonight. Burn it tonight.
Yeah, let's burn.
Let's burn it tonight.
What are we sacrificing?
Burn it sacrifice.
Oh yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, I don't want to burn it now that I saw it. I don't want to burn it anymore.
So if you go to,
I don't know how to stop recording. Do you know how
I was just going
to?
to do